Howdy, my name is Matt Gomez, and this is my capstone video for my first course in my master's in educational technology. This course was called Instructional Design, and it focused on the design aspect of incorporating technology into the classroom, but also just the design of good education in general. The first question: what was the most challenging thing that you learned this semester? For me, the most challenging thing was reviewing the philosophy behind learning and some of the terminology and the different aspects of how kids or how teachers will learn and how that affects the design process. Epistemology was probably the most difficult part for me to understand, which is the theory of knowledge, or what is knowledge and how is it acquired, and just thinking through how people learn was something that I had to really focus on to be able to understand. The behaviorist and constructivist part of learning was difficult for me in that I had to kind of figure out where I fit in that continuum and how it would affect the learning. And it's obvious to me that I fit more in the constructivist side of learning. Question 2, what was the most interesting thing that you learned this semester? For me, it would be how media has changed over time, dating back to the early 1900s, and how each time that we had a new technology, people would assume that it was going to change education drastically, and almost every time through the course of history, that didn't happen. The most interesting aspect of that to me was that as we look back through the history of media and technology in the classroom, that each time teachers' resistance to change and lack of training or lack of understanding of the new tools were big factors in it not being the change that people expected, and that's the same thing that I see even now. Question 3, what was the most useful thing that I learned this semester? I would have to say focusing on data is something that was very important to me and something very useful to me. I'm not a big data person in my classroom, and I know it's really important for the instructional design process to be able to look at data and review it. I enjoy the numbers, but I tend not to focus on them as much as I should. The second part of that would be evaluation. Coming into this course, I would say that I mainly saw evaluation as something that you did after the design process, but it's clear to me now that evaluation is something that needs to be done before, during, and after any kind of design to make sure that you're on the right track. To kind of take that a step further, one of the key graphics that I found useful this semester was one where it showed how the development, the evaluation, all the different aspects of design are part of a process that's ongoing and continuous throughout the design and throughout the intended instruction. It's not just a one-time thing for any of them, but it's something that continues throughout. And seeing that big picture and understanding it was a big part of my learning this semester. Question 4, explain 3 examples of how you've already implemented or plan to implement what you've learned this semester. The first one for me would be motivation. I think this is going to be a very big key as I move into different positions and try to help people implement technology. The main thing I'm going to focus on with motivation is relationships. I think that's the key to success in any position in education and instruction. So that's going to be one of my big focuses. I'm going to continue to try to work on that. The second way I'm going to try to help motivate people is through time. I think giving people adequate time to understand the questions they have and to play with new tools is very important and something that I don't think is done enough. The last one is value. I think often we focus too much on the tool itself and not the value it provides. And so that's going to be one of my goals to help motivate people. The second part, which this is something that I think I do a pretty good job of, but I want to make sure that I keep the focus where it belongs. Regardless of the technology we're using, it's fun, it's shiny, but the focus needs to stay on the learning. And we need to develop everything that we're doing with incorporating technology in the design process to start with that learning and move outward. And then the last part is just being a connected educator. I was glad to see that was part of the learning this semester, that sites like LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook are going to be very important for instructional design and for my job in the future, because those connections will help me, especially as districts look to find unique and cheaper ways to train. Having those connections are going to be really important as I move forward. As my good friend Amber Tiemann always says, the smartest person in the room is the room, and that's something that's always hit home with me, and that I want to continue to build that network that I have. Saying that, I want to say that anyone in the course can connect with me on my blog at mattbgomez.com and also on Twitter. I really enjoyed the class, and I appreciate you watching. Thank you.